People on board at the moment. So welcome, everybody. My name is Chris McNamara, founder and CEO of Pathway CTM. We've got a really special webinar for you today. We're looking at technology innovation stories within Allen and Overy. I'm not going to give away who Allen and Overy are just yet. I'm just going to have a quick look at the poll results. Let's have a quick look. Let's end that poll. And let me just share the results with everybody. So do you know what Allen and Overy do? 31%, and make a note of that. 31% do know what A&O do. 52% are here to find out, I like it, and 17% unsure. Now the question I've asked here, how are you going to be joining us for all of the sessions on Wednesdays? 41% are saying they're going to be there. I like that. The reason I ask that, okay, we've done something quite special with Sue from Allen and Overy, who you'll get to meet in a second. And we've actually got, if you attend all 7 sessions with Allen and Overy every Wednesday for the next 7 weeks, then the 8th session is going to be a special one where we've got their Chief Technology Officer by the name of John. He's actually going to have a special session with those who have been on all of the different sessions with A&O, because probably by that stage, it means that you know a lot about the brand, you're interested in what they do, and you're interested in getting to know them a little bit more. So what we want to do at Pathway is give you access, which I think is really important as a young person, access to a really high level person, find out about his story and how he got to where he gets to, what he does in his important job, and just find out a little bit more. So if you attend all 7 sessions, you'll get to do that. And just so you know, in terms of what we've got coming up, next week we've got a Look Beyond session, where actually we'll be looking into different roles within Allen and Overy. We've also got the opportunity to virtually meet different trainees if you are interested in the law sector. So that'll be really interesting for you. But this session, we're looking at something a little bit different, which I'm very, very keen to find out a little bit more about in terms of technology within Allen and Overy. So let's crack on with the session. So in terms of the agenda, we'll go over Allen and Overy now in a second, and then we're going to introduce our panelists. It's my job really to make sure I'm interviewing the panelists, asking them different questions, finding out like their personal stories about where they got to and their route, what they do now in their careers, and as always, interested to find out any top tips for young people, and always, guys, keen to get your questions as well. How do you speak on this webinar? So the chat box is what you should use if we ask you any questions. For example, what does Allen and Overy do? The Q&A box is what you should do if you want to ask a question. So if you want to ask a question, whack it in the Q&A box and we'll make sure that we get to it. If you do want to skip the queue and ask a question by speaking, then what I will do, if you raise your hand, I will be able to unmute you and you can actually interact and speak to the guys as well. So if you're confident, go for it. I definitely recommend it. So a couple of questions to start off with. I'm going to ask this and ask you to put it in the chat box. So Allen and Overy is actually an international legal practice, but how many offices around the world does it have? And you're not allowed to Google. Put it in the chat box now, quick as you can. I just want to get a guess about what you're thinking. Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it maybe many more? And while you do that, guys, in the chat box, oh, here we go. We've got some coming in. 50, 2,000, 10, 74, 400. Has anybody got it so far? Let's have a look. 40. I think somebody did say 40 actually. So 40, well done if you got that right. Employees. Okay, so how many people work there? What are we thinking? So if there's 40 offices, how many staff are in that? And we've got a few of them here today. 3,000 we've got there, 2,000. Some big numbers. 4,000. Let's have a look. Has anyone got it? 5,400. Okay, now, final question, and then I'll skip the last one. Lawyers. So if you've got 5,400 who work there, how many of them are lawyers? Would that be all of them? Would that be 5,400 or not? Well, I guess we'll find out today. People are thinking big numbers here. 2,000, 2.5, 2,000 from Zoe. 600, we're lowering there. 1,000, okay, interesting. Let's have a look. 2,300. Oh, 2,700 from V. You nearly got it. Well done. And then finally, in fact, I will ask it, partners. So top of the business. So the likes of John, for example, those who are really going up high in the business, how many of those would be partners? I wonder if we're going to get close to the right number here. 162, 70. Still quite big numbers here. Maybe you're right. 50, 45. 550. So that's quite a big number there for partners at Alan Overy. Maybe that's how it's run. Sue, I'd love to be able to introduce you and what you do at Alan Overy. Maybe share some light on that if you want to as well. But over to you, Sue.
Hi everybody, so my name's Sue Wisby and I'm the Community Investment Manager at Alan Overy. I have been at A&O for 35 years and my role within the investment team is liaising with staff and focusing on our core themes. So increasing access to justice and access to education and employment is an important part of what Alan and Overy do. And my role is to liaise between schools and charities to find ways where we can address the imbalance in society. So I manage a number of programmes and these programmes can be with primary school children up to higher education. And the overall objective of this is to help young people like yourselves fulfil your potential regardless of your background. One organisation that we work with is Pathway CTM, which is why we're on the session today. And there's also lots of opportunities that we deliver for our staff and the community. And you can find out a bit more about those on our website, and there will be a link at the end of the slides where you can see all the things that we do. One of the programmes that I manage and Alan Overy is very proud of is our Year 12 work experience programme, Smart Start. So if you are in Year 11 or Year 10, you might want to have a look at that on our website to see how you can apply and when you can apply. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Sue. And it's just great to hear that from Sue. You know, Sue isn't a lawyer, but she's working in a big law firm. And that's the whole theme of the sessions we're doing with Alan and Overy, just to see what really does go on in this organisation and maybe what opportunities might be there for you. So let's see who we've got on the panel today. I'm going to start off by asking Nitish just to summarise, please, your role at Alan and Overy and a little bit more about yourself, please, Nitish.
Cool, thanks, Chris. So my name's Nitish. I'm currently the Senior Innovation Manager at A&O, which means I lead one of the technology teams. It's about innovating and essentially producing creative solutions to problems. But actually, I can talk a little bit about that in a second. I'm actually a lawyer by background. So I did a training contract. I did law at university. And actually, A&O was my first kind of proper job. And so I started in 2012. I qualified into the litigation practice, and a lot of my time involved investigations and commercial court cases. So lots of the market rigging cases that you guys might have heard of, investigating banks, investigating corporates for money laundering, for bribery, for corruption, really quite interesting stuff. And also I represented a number of financial institutions in court effectively. So that's a big part of what A&O does, is that commercial corporate style client base and giving them a full service, whether that's in litigation and fighting court cases or disputes, or things like corporate where you might have mergers and acquisitions, all the way across to banking, so arranging loans and helping businesses to grow. That's where I started my career, and I had a great time. I spent a bit of time in New York, in Hong Kong, and Sydney, whilst I was in that role. Quite interesting circumstances, lots of work, and pretty busy. And then I decided a couple of years ago, actually, that I wanted a bit of a change. So I took a career break, and that's something that I'm always going to be grateful to A&O for giving me the flexibility to do. I took 9 months off. I went traveling, spent some more time with my family, and actually I came back into this new role. It sounds very funny, but we do have lots of other non-legal roles, as Chris has mentioned. And our technology business is rather large and probably some of the biggest that you'll see at a law firm. So the job of my team, and actually Katie, who's joining us as well, is on that team, is to take ideas or problems that any lawyer from across our offices, the 5,400 odd people, staff, lawyers included, everyone, and to try and help them find a solution to that issue. Often it involves some form of technology. How do we use technology to help make things more efficient? And we use lots of different methods, and whether that's things like virtual workshops or trying to get them to think differently. We do lots of drawing, lots of creativity. There's quite a different role to what you might consider a lawyer or a legal practice does. But I know there's lots of other people to talk as well, so I'll leave it there for the time being.
Brilliant, thanks, Nitish. And I'll come back to you in a second about your Cambridge degree, which sounds very interesting. Saran, over to you.
Sure. So hi everyone, I'm Saran. I'm a senior engagement manager here at the firm within the legal technology group. My role is essentially to help our lawyers use some of the new technologies that we are trialling and adopting, and also working with Nitish and his team, the innovation team. So a typical day for me is quite varied. So being an engagement manager, we work with various groups across the A&O network. So one day I could be working with people in our IT team, so a team of developers perhaps, or I could be on a call with our information security team, so making sure that any products that we're using we're keeping data secure, we're making sure that we maintain confidentiality. Another day I could be working with our business development team, and we may be putting together a pitch to try and win a new piece of work, and helping them understand how we explain how we use technology. So it's a varied role. We work with very different groups within A&O, and you really start to see the breadth of the A&O network. How did I get to where I am? Purely by chance, I'd say. So when I was younger, I was very much adamant that I wanted to go into law and I wanted to be a solicitor. And I studied law at university. I did my postgraduate diploma, so my legal practice qualification as well. But I ended up graduating at the time of a recession. And that meant that there were less jobs available. And it was actually my dad at the time that asked me to have a look at other industries. So yes, I've been focused and determined to get something in law, but why not use this opportunity to try and do something different? And so I randomly started working for a tech company. And actually it was having that experience in a tech company and my legal studies and background that prepared me for the role that I have at A&O today. But I'll never admit to my dad that he was in the right by giving me that advice.
He'll never see this webinar. Sarah, and over to Katie.
Hi everyone. So there's going to be a theme here because I'm going to talk about my dad in a minute as well. But I am Katie Jerome, and it says on the slide I am a business analyst or a Scrum business analyst. But actually, as of Monday, I actually got promoted, and I am now an innovation manager, working with Nitish. But actually, what I wanted to talk to you about a bit more is about my background, because slightly different to Saran and Nitish, actually, similar to Sue, I'm not a lawyer. I don't come from a legal background. The most I studied law was I did do law for A-level, because at the time I wasn't really sure what I wanted to go into. I did law, IT, geography and English, so quite a mixed variety of subjects. And actually I came out of college thinking I wanted to be a teacher. So we were talking earlier about deferring places, and actually I deferred my university place because actually I thought I wanted to be a teacher and teach IT, and I actually went back to the school that I used to go to and worked as a teaching assistant for a year, and actually enjoyed the job, but realised that actually teaching wasn't for me, and actually I didn't really enjoy teaching IT, but it was an area which I could see a potential future in. And I remember when I was applying for universities, and actually applied for all 6, I think it was at the time, but applied in different subjects. So I applied for law, I think at Warwick, I applied to English somewhere, I applied for geography, and then I eventually applied to Southampton to do IT. And I remember asking my stepdad what he thought, he came with me on the visits, and what he thought was the best thing to do. And I also remember being quite confused and unsure of really what I wanted to go into. I knew I'd got kind of interested in all of these different areas, but wasn't really sure what was right for me. And And I remembered speaking to career coaches and mentors at college and at the school I was working at. And actually, in the end, went to Southampton and studied IT in organisations, which was not a very technical degree, maybe like computer science, but actually was really very focused on people skills and being able to communicate in a non-technical way to perhaps the business or business people. And actually, like Saran, I came out, or I graduated when the recession was going on, even though I was slightly a year later because I'd done that gap year. Actually, I came out of university and had nothing lined up and wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And at that point, actually stayed on at Southampton for another year and did a master's degree in something called web science. And that was looking at the impact of the web from completely different disciplines. So on my course, there was a mathematician, there was somebody who'd studied sciences, there was somebody who'd studied history. And actually for me, I just decided that it was, what I needed to do was set myself apart from maybe other people that were also competing for these jobs. And so I graduated from Southampton after a year and came out with a master's, and then went to work for the defence company BAE Systems as an auditor, auditing their ISO standards. And again, for me, I knew I wanted to work for I thought I wanted to work for a tech company, I suppose, and did a couple of very much working for software companies, one in finance, and then got offered the opportunity at Allen & Overy. And of course, for me, I'd done law at A-level, so I got an interest in law, but also this was a business analyst, more of a technical route in the legal tech team, but actually allowed me to combine the two. So that's my only kind of legal background, but actually what Allen & Overy has allowed me to do is really combine those two passions and interests. And so I work with Nitish and Saran very closely. And actually, as Nitish said, in my role, it's about doing things very different. It's not necessarily what you'd see as somebody doing at a law firm. Just as an example, I do lots of these sort of colourful mind maps. It's very creative, and we do a lot of work with Post-it notes. Again, not what you might traditionally think as a role at a law firm. So I guess that's a bit about me.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Katie. There's so many things I want to ask you. That's brilliant. Really good insight into your journey there. Krishna, we'll come on to you next in terms of your journey to where you are now. We'll go into Fuse and the support a little bit later, but just top line, it'd be great to understand a bit more about you.
Yeah, sure. Hi guys, my name is Krishna. I work at Avoca. We're a software company that's currently based in Fuse. Arguably, probably the shortest intro you're going to hear. Much shorter career than these other amazing guys. I did philosophy at university. I was interested in law very peripherally. I went to a lot of the drinks and nibbles events. Had more nibbles than than was probably necessary at the time. But I mean, I was interested in it very, very cursorily. I really wanted to work in music or film, and I actually did an internship at a law firm that worked predominantly in music in Soho. But the music seat that we had during the course of that internship was actually super boring. I was just looking over contracts for artists that I really loved that were getting really, really terrible deals. And I just had a horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach, to be honest. But when I went onto the corporate side and really thinking about the way a business worked and the kind of keys and levers that meant that we were protecting ourselves with this particular piece of drafting that was called a waiver, and other kind of legal kind of jiu-jitsu that people were doing in order to protect themselves, I found it actually really interesting. And a business really felt like a mini city, the way different kind of parts of it would complement each other. And I found that my background in philosophy kept me interested in that kind of thing, because I was really interested in high level concepts, what tied society together and that kind of thing. So with those two on my back, my heart wasn't really in kind of my corporate law applications, though. I actually remember doing, and please don't take this advice, I remember doing one of the applications while I was at a house party, writing them on my phone. So I was just doing it to please people around me, I think. So I ended up working at startup Accelerator, which is essentially school for startups, where we would teach them stuff. And I mean, I had nothing to teach, but even as someone with like a background, being a young person that went to university, like spoke a lot, did debating and that sort of thing, I could give people advice on how to put their pitches together, how to make them more interesting, where to put the kind of their commercial proposition. And really what our job was to get them what's called market validation, which is basically making sure you're solving a real problem. And you'd be surprised, I think, as a young person, how many people start businesses that don't solve real problems. So our job was to make sure they got in front of industry people and made sure their problem was real and they could actually solve it using their piece of software, whether that was like AI or with blockchain or all kinds of like interesting buzzwords. And it was around that time I met Elliot and David, who actually came through the Accelerator at that time. And these two were just like super young guys, fresh out of really top city firms. And we just got on straight away. We had this really weird sense of humor. And whenever they came in, like we'd just really enjoy each other's company. And I remember getting a coffee with Elliot once, and he was like, "Oh man, we're really struggling. Like we really need like someone else, like someone young and dynamic, someone like you actually." And I was like, "Oh, someone like me." And he was like, yeah, exactly. And then he just went to pay it. And I was like, no, someone like me. And we just had this really awkward realization that I was actually begging him for a job in a prep. So, and then he was like, oh, I'll speak to David. And then I just kept pestering him like every kind of couple of weeks. I would just call. If I didn't call Elliot, I would call David. If David didn't pick up, I'll call Elliot. And I think they just got sick of me. So they were just like, yeah, let's just bring this kid on. And then from then it's been about 2 years. So really helping to grow the business, speaking to new clients in a variety of industry verticals, basically in different industries. I don't know why I'm trying to sound smart here. And I mean, there's so much I had to learn straight away, but I think learning philosophy really helped with that because you have to pick up concepts really, really quickly. And in the legal world is very similar to the philosophy world because everybody has their own words for everything. And same with banking, whether it's like derivative finance or like private equity, there's just words for them. And I'm known for out of Oka for my analogies. One thing I really realized from speaking to especially like partners and other people, like the people on this panel, is that smart people use what they know to frame things that they don't know. So like, it's just like slicing up pieces of a pie, and I could explain like really complex like loan agreements and that sort of thing. So for me, it was really hard to learn like the legal side, but as well as the tech side. Like, do we have different servers? What's an API? How can I access the API all of it is just about concepts, just ideas, pushing different pieces of information to different places. So I think learning that has been really cool. And then on top of that, the business side. So how do we actually grow this business? Where are we seeing the revenue come in from? Who can we sell to? How is this a use case that's going to be used somewhere else? And then marketing on top of that. And I think it was amazing being part of a small business as well. Sorry, my final thing before we can move on. Because you get to do a bit of everything. It's not just one person siloed in one place, and I'm not just like signing off and like pushing pieces of paper around. Like, we're actually doing real stuff every day to help grow this business, and I really like building stuff. So that was a bit about me and a bit about what I do, but I'm sure
it wasn't so short, Ian, Krishna, but it was pretty impressive nonetheless. Thank you.
Once you start talking, you really start enjoying the sound of your voice. So.
Yeah. No, it was good. I've just got a question from you from Krishna saying, I'm really interested in studying philosophy at university. If you can, what university did you go to, and how did you transition into a corporate environment from a degree like philosophy?
Yeah, I went to Warwick. Why did I go to Warwick? I mean, I applied to it because obviously it's a top university, but it was actually a friend of mine who's a poet, weirdly. So he went to Warwick, and then now he's a teacher at like Princeton or something like that. But he used to put poetry videos on YouTube, and I randomly hit him up, and he just said it was one of the best like campus experiences he ever had. And I really wanted to get out of London at the time. And so, yeah, I would definitely recommend that uni. Philosophy, I mean, I really liked literature, I really like art, I really like music, going to museums, watching movies, that sort of thing, and thinking about the concepts that tied them all together. And a lot of philosophy can be like really heady, very, very mathematical, very similar to coding and legal logic. But another side to philosophy, which is called Continental Philosophy as opposed to analytical, is more based on like what makes art, for instance, or like why do certain systems control us in certain ways? Like, how is the church different from politics, and all sorts of interesting stuff like that. And I really like arguing, and clearly I really like talking, which I've realized as well. So all of the above.
It's great. Thanks, Krishna. And Saran and Katie, just for the sake of coming into the session, I'm actually going to move on to Fuse, and we're going to come back to ask you guys some questions in a second. So Nitish, could you just please explain a little bit about Fuse, its position in Allen & Overy, and indeed how you work with the likes of Krishna and his company?
Absolutely. Saran's going to test me on this one now. This is Saran's usual spiel. Fuse is effectively our way of staying ahead of the curve, and actually, as a law firm, being the curve. That sounds really jargony, but what it really means is that 2 or 3 years ago, some of our management teams saw the way the legal industry was heading. They realized that technology was going to be an ever increasing part of the way that lawyers did work. And they acknowledged that clients were not going to pay for really boring, admin style tasks. So what they really wanted to do is 2 things. One, give our lawyers the chance to interact with technology. And if you don't really work around it in a physical space, or you're not interacting with people virtually very often, it's really difficult for lawyers who just have been taught one way of doing things to really think outside the box. So that was the first idea. It was having a physical space where people would come to interact with technology. Now, how do you do this? Well, we brought in a number of startups like Overy and a number of other promising companies who we thought were going to change the way the legal industry went. And so what we had eventually was a funky space, kind of like what people would associate with Google, lots of color and plants, and quite different sometimes from a typical legal office. So we had the physical space, we had the cohort, the companies, these startups, and then we also had our legal technology team that Saran and Katie and I work with. So putting those together, we were able to give our lawyers and our clients really interesting access to the challenges that they're facing, allow us to help them along the way, and also to integrate technology in everything that we do. And it's only by doing this properly, I think, that we've managed to start to get people to adopt all of this technology rather than just doing the bog standard basic things that they've always been taught to do. And ultimately, that's meant that our lawyers are able to do more interesting work. If you've got some systems that automate some of the boring work, then you can do more interesting things, even if you're a junior. And for our clients, it means that they get things quicker and cheaper.
Brilliant. That's so interesting. And Saran, if I come to you next, actually, so you've been to Linklaters, Pinson Masons, you did the legal route, and now you're in the technology field. How does it feel transferring over to the tech side of what is a law career ultimately, initially?
I think, so at Pinsons and Linklaters, it's similar legal tech roles, but I think being able to have the foundation, so having studied law all the way through to postgraduate level, really helps with then understanding what it is that our lawyers are doing on a day-to-day basis, the way that they work on deals, the way that they give legal advice, and then being able to understand what the technology can do and how it can help them. So being able to have the background in both, it really helps with having those conversations and engaging lawyers and our clients on some of these new technologies.
Brilliant. And I wonder, maybe one for Katie, in terms of how does it support Allen & Overy in terms of the normal business that you do, and on the flip side, how is that really well counteracted by having lawyers in the tech space for startups like Overy?
Oh, I mean, it's huge, really. I mean, for us, so my role is very much to work with and encourage people from across the business to put forward ideas. We have an ideas platform where we ask for anybody who has an idea on how we might do something better, on how we could improve a process, and how we could potentially sell a new product to clients, or how we could make use of technology. And that could be technology that they've seen in the market, or more importantly, technology, they've had demos from the Fuse cohorts and actually think, oh, we've got a really good use case for this, or we really want to try this out with Overy. And really my role is to kind of help people prove the value in those ideas before we go ahead and invest in tech or roll something out, to really check it works. And particularly having the cohorts in Fuse has been fantastic, because actually it's not us forcing tech onto the lawyers. It's actually being driven by the lawyers who are coming and seeing demos, who are talking to the likes of Overy and other companies, and are actually thinking, I've got a fantastic use case for this, I want to trial this and I want to use it. And it's the lawyers then themselves, looking to push the tech out rather than it being us forcing it on them. So actually, I think, and actually what we've seen is that the lawyers have really kind of embraced the tech and are really starting to see, particularly in the team I'm in and in legal tech, our workload has significantly increased in the last, 12 months as we start to showcase more of this tech and as we start to bring in more fused cohorts and myself and the innovation team, we start to get more and more ideas from across the globe about tech that could be used or a new way of doing things. And that's all being driven particularly by the laws, but also the support staff as well, who have fantastic, who have just as good ideas as well.
No, brilliant. And guys, just for you listening at home, this is such a great insight into examples of you understanding about the sector and about business. Knowing about Fuse in Allen & Overy and the companies that it supports it's a good pub conversation, you could argue, but it's a great interview conversation, particularly if you're going into a sector like this. It just shows that you've done research and you know what's going on. Those of you interested in technology, who would have thought that you could get involved in something like this at Allen & Overy? For those of you who are interested in becoming aspiring lawyers, for example, again, who would have thought that you could actually get this sort of technology play in a law firm, and what a great thing to be able to speak about. So Overy then, Krishna, so what's it like going into Allen & Overy? Do you actually get to have an office space there, like Natish was saying, and talk us through some of the things that your company does and how it links in with Allen & Overy?
Yeah, sure. We actually sit and almost live and work Allen & Overy, to be honest. So we sit in the Fuse space. It's a really nice plush office. I think it was designed by the same people that designed Google's office, which was a little tidbit that I was told that just made me feel extra special at one point. And whether it's true or not, I'll never know.
And so you're there. Is it about 8 companies that get brought on every 6 months? So are you there with like-minded companies? Is that how it works?
Yeah, essentially. So we're all sitting so close together as well that people often roll their chairs over, share different problems, ask how we solve certain problems, and obviously vice versa. The concept of a co-working space is just that, right? You work alongside people that are going to be your peers, and it's almost like being in a library at uni. So you just see people that are working on similar projects, ask how they did it, and so on and so forth. And what we do is we have a specific piece of software essentially that helps people make contracts faster. So instead of having to go in and delete the square brackets in a Word document, you're essentially filling out a little quiz, and then based on the quiz, it's building the contract for you. And that could be anywhere from a 1-page NDA to a 200-page loan agreement with loads of different people putting in loads of different types of information. So for us, it's been really key to get feedback from the A&O lawyers, the legal tech sort of engagement managers like Saran, Natish and Katie, and then from obviously the higher ups, like the partners who are actually going to be rolling it out and looking to see big profit and loss differences essentially, which are whether or not they need lawyers to work on sort of high volume stuff. So what we're helping to do is save, I'm sure it'll be one of you at some point who are going to be future trainees, who save trainees time so they don't have to be in the office until 1 or 2 in the morning filling out 100 board resolutions. In the future, you'll just be able to fill out a quiz and then generate 100 documents and then go home and enjoy your life. And in the next 2 weeks, actually, we're training 100 trainees on Overy in little batches. So hopefully in 2021, all of the trainees are going to be using us, especially in the kind of banking and finance sector, to generate the documents.
Fantastic. And what's it like in terms of the support you get from Allen & Overy versus if you were to do it on your own without Allen & Overy? Is it absolutely transformational for your business?
Yeah, it's massive. For us, a lot of it almost it comes down to clout as well, right? So knowing that we're on the back of Allen & Overy, or almost endorsed by Allen & Overy is such a huge benefit for us in all of our kind of marketing collateral and sales collateral. Elliot and David, I think, have been to pop-ups in Singapore, New York, Brussels, Amsterdam and Paris with Alan Overy, all showcasing our product and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's been absolutely invaluable to have the brand name of Alan Overy, as well as the hands-on experience from their lawyers and all the kind of dedicated professionals that helped shape what it is today.
And Christian, I've seen that you've been doing a few webinars as well over COVID-19, one specific to law as well. Just tell us a little bit about how your company is adapting to this period at the moment.
Yeah, so I mean, all of it has been done on Zoom, which has been an awesome resource for us. The big thing that we're doing actually is this initiative called the Overy Academy, where we get people who have never automated before, young lawyers, even some students, future paralegals, through like really innovative companies like Flex and that sort of thing. And we're actually doing more stuff with people who are students, so through the University of Law, who are going to be the trainees of the future, to get them automating on like click along webinar sessions with us. So that's been a really cool initiative that we're doing to just get more of the word out and teach more of the ecosystem how to automate documents on our platform.
Amazing. Guys, I've got a question here. I'll open it to the floor from Neem. Good question. How important do you think that technology in the legal sector is going to be important interacting with clients overseas post COVID-19? If you got that one, it's in the Q&A box. So in terms of the legal technology in the legal sector, interacting with clients overseas post COVID-19.
I think probably it's worth mentioning that it's a global firm, so our clients are already based in several jurisdictions, different countries, and I guess traditionally the way that you would communicate with your clients probably mainly through email and over the phone, but we are seeing the use of technology changing that. So for example, more video conferencing, different ways to share documents securely on deal platforms and portals, an increase in collaboration tools as well, so the way in which a whole deal team can communicate and work on particular documents. And I guess Overy is an example of that. So Overy has, and Chris, you can jump in if I start talking about the product, but traditionally, the way that you would work on drafting a document with a client or with the other side that you're up against, you would share that draft document via email and you would go back and forth and you would wait to receive the other side's version, their comments, their changes. But now through the use of Overy, you can do that whole process on that platform, similar to Google Docs. So again, it's changing the way in which you're interacting and communicating with clients through the use of technology. So it's more visible, it's more transparent, and it's less hidden away in emails.
Brilliant, thank you. And Nitish, if I come to you now, we've got a question here from V saying, how many years did you study for? And you went to Cambridge, didn't you? And then you've worked at Alan Overy for 8 years. So it might be just good to hear that from you. Yeah,
sure. So yeah, I did 3 years of a law degree at Cambridge, and when I first did I did a summer scheme at Cambridge for a week, and I really didn't think that a kid from Wembley was like going to suit or fit Cambridge, and it was sort of Harry Potter land and a sort of a weird place for me. I actually turned up for my interview in jeans and a jumper, and lots of people were wearing all these crazy suits and these exciting clothes, and I thought I just wasn't going to fit in. And actually, I had the best 3 years. I met so many people from different areas. I learned so much. I had the opportunity to do, I'm not the best footballer in the world, but I could play seconds football and, enjoy myself. So it gave me a different outlook, some really, really cool connections. And actually, one of the things that helped kick off for me is my love of traveling. In my third year, I wrote an essay and I won a travel grant and a prize. And so some of the photos that you see behind me are things that I've taken through catching the travel bug, and the first chance I had to do that was off the back of a prize that I got from the university. That's when I bought my first backpack, and I bought all these various bits and pieces, and I went to volunteer to teach English in Nepal. And as soon as the last 10 years of my life has been spent with this charity that I ended up meeting out there, working with them to help communities build education and livelihood projects, supporting them rather than telling them what to do, giving them the resources to do themselves. And that's been a massive kind of part of my career in a way. And I'm, again, lucky enough that A&O have supported along the way. But coming back to the question, I sort of did my 3 years. I did a year on the LPC. Back then it was sort of a year rather than 6 months, but a year doing the legal practice course. And then I took some time off and I spent time traveling. So again, I knew I was lucky enough to have a job to come back to at A&O, and A&O sponsored my legal practice course. So I spent 9 months traveling. I spent some time in South America. I then worked for the charity again. So I spent 2 months in Tanzania, and then came back and then started my career. And part of the joy of working for a firm like Allen & Overy is that your training doesn't just stop once you've graduated. You are trained sort of probably every month. You get bits and pieces of training that help you, whether that's in skills to do with your actual job, so being a lawyer, or soft skills like how you present, how you talk to people, how you negotiate. All of those things are really fundamental to improving our people. And now I've got this kind of crazy new job which I just made up, and in a way, being slightly facetious, but it's something that I haven't been trained for in terms of going and having a graduate degree or anything else. But it does show you that if you can do some work outside and do the extra reading, you really can find an environment or an organization that supports you in doing things. And all of the jobs that we do, Saran, Katie, Krish, maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, really weren't that big a deal. You certainly couldn't go to university and get a qualification in becoming an innovation manager or an engagement manager. And as Katie said, her career has changed a lot as well. So in a way, you can do your 3 years at university, or you don't have to do that. But there's always going to be a path if you're willing to push hard and find your niche, the things that you're really interested in, passionate about.
Definitely. And Tish, I just want you to answer this based on what we just said there. In your opinion, which direction do you think law will go in, and what patterns and trends do you think will emerge in the future? Good question.
It's a tough one, actually. It's a question that a lot of people are asking at the moment, almost the $1 million question. I think there's probably 2 or 3 limbs to it. The first one is that technology is going to take over the basic admin style tasks, and rightly so. And as lots of people have said, it means that the junior lawyers especially are going to get better quality of work. Clients end up with better service. I think that then leads to kind of point 2, which is expansion into new areas. So there's always been corporate law and there's always been sort of banking. That's kind of standard. But now there's really interesting legal conundrums around ethics and AI. What happens when you are recording systems, or when a system makes a decision? How do you sue the system when it gets it wrong? Do you sue the person that designed the system? How do you look at the system? There's all of these wonderful questions that start coming out as technology kind of goes through the market. I'm sure lots of people are familiar with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and things that arise from that side as well. So I think that's really interesting. And then the third, we always talk about the Robo lawyer, or is there going to be a robot doing the legal work? And speaking to someone not too long ago, we were joking about Ali McBot taking over the legal space. And I think certainly part of that is true, but there's always going to be a place for lawyers to be providing legal judgment, and years of experience can make a real difference when it comes to drafting things. Technology means that you get your first draft quicker, you can see data about what's going on, but ultimately there's going to be a judgment call. So we're still going to need people who are trained up and really able to make those key cut calls.
Brilliant, thanks, Tish. I'm learning so much from this, guy, so hopefully you are too. Katie, just to come to you, if that's okay, for someone who didn't go down the traditional law route, a question here saying, do you know anyone who has entered the company with an unconventional degree? I suppose from your point of view in relation to that question, what advice would you have for young people who want to go and do what you're doing in a law firm, but obviously not getting that legal qualification and route?
I think I would say to keep your hand in terms of, following what's going on in the press. The other thing to mention is that I didn't come through the law route, and also we have we are part of the Advanced Delivery and Solutions department, if you like, within Allen & Overy. And we launched, and Saran can say more, but we launched a couple of years ago a graduate scheme. And through that, we've taken on a number of graduates that basically spend time in the different advanced delivery and solutions parts of the business. So they'll spend time with legal tech, they'll spend time with I2, they'll spend time with our project management office, they'll spend time with our markets innovation group. And actually, a lot of those grads don't necessarily come from a legal background. They are computer science students, or they might have different degrees in different areas. They're not all necessarily from the legal side, but actually have got a real interest in looking at technology to do with the law firm, and actually how we can help to make tech products for the lawyers. So I would say kind of keep up to date with what is going on in the market in terms of tech and lawyers, and what the likes of Anna and Overy's competitors are doing as well.
Brilliant. And how would it help students, do you think, by referencing this webinar and what they've learned? There's quite, I'm sure not many people maybe in the City of London are aware of this, like they would be Alan and Overy doing, legal work, for example. Yeah, and I would say go and have those conversations, looking, mention Fuse. You only have to type into Fuse into Google and you see all the press that comes up. Somebody mentioned LinkedIn earlier. Go and follow Fuse on LinkedIn, go and follow A&O and see what's going on, and keep up to date on that side of things, and have those conversations. Look at different innovative approaches that law firms are taking, how they're running things now. One of the questions you asked Saran was about working with clients across the globe. Actually, for myself and Atish, we pride ourselves on running very interactive workshops where we do a lot of post-it note exercises. And actually, with what's happened with COVID-19, we've had to move our workshops to being virtually. But that doesn't mean it needs to stop. It means you just have to come up with a new way of doing things. You have to think about those workshops and actually what tools and techniques you can use to get the most out of people. So I would say Fuse is a great place to go and talk about, go and read about the stories for the people that have started Fuse. Shruti Adjustari started Fuse and came up, has a brilliant story behind it, and go and do your research. You can find all of that stuff online, and have those conversations with people, and actually you'll find it sparks off lots of interest. Brilliant, thanks so much. And maybe if I come to Saran and then maybe Krishna just after with this question, this generally seems like such an interesting field. Do you think you could enter this field from the software engineering side of things? Any opinions on that from A&O or from Avoca's point of view?
I think so, definitely. Within A&O, we have a team of data scientists and software engineers that we work very closely with. And our teams, when we assemble a team on a particular deal, for example, on how we're going to deliver our legal services, it's multidisciplinary. So you will have a lawyer who provides the subject matter expertise in that particular legal field. So if it's a banking lawyer or a corporate lawyer or a derivatives lawyer, and then on that same project team, you may have a developer or a software engineer. You may have someone that looks at, say, for example, gathering the requirements, or a business analyst. So I definitely think there is room for software engineers to join law firms, and you'll see, even if you go on the careers websites or vacancies websites, you'll see different roles advertised for law firms. Brilliant, thanks very much. And Krishna, from your point of view?
Yeah, same from our side, of course. It's a bit of an odd answer that I'm going to give, because our tech team isn't based in the UK, but there's two parts to the answer. One is certainly from a software engineering point of view. Like, we're always looking for new developers to help us build the product, design it from an aesthetic point of view, as to like how the buttons look, what's the flow, where is someone going to click once they do action A, B, C, and D. Like, does it make sense? Do the buttons actually reflect what they're actually doing? It's actually it's pretty sad how long we spend looking at buttons and deciding whether or not that's like the right icon for save or folder. But yeah, certainly. And I think the second part of my answer is that there are certainly roles out there that straddle both. Just because our tech team is based in the Czech Republic doesn't mean that from a software point of view, you can't interact meaningfully with a startup and have like kind of meaningful insights to bring. There are so many amazing roles, and we have so many interns that actually have a coding background, and it makes their job a lot easier because they understand both from the business perspective and from the technical perspective what we're trying to achieve. And if I had that kind of at least basic understanding of how code was written when I started, I think I would have been in a much better position. And it's just good to have those kind of first principles at the front of your mind whenever you're in this. But yeah, I mean, from a software engineering point of view, there's so many paths you can take.
Thanks so much. And Nitish, I know you've got to head off soon, so I'll leave you with this question, if that's okay. Why did you decide to change your job from a lawyer to what you are doing now?
It's a really, really good question. One I keep asking myself. I just wanted to completely change. I wanted to stay in the industry. I wanted to still stay with A&O because I really enjoy working with the people and the nature of the firm. But I just found that I was losing the passion for actually doing law as a sort of full-time fee-earning role. And actually what I really wanted to do was be a bit more creative. And I think actually that the advent of technology is going to allow lawyers to be more creative in the future. But 2 or 3 years ago, that wasn't as possible. I wanted to go and draw. I wanted to go and interact with people. I wanted to help them get the most out of things. And that's actually what this role lets me do. I'm really interested in behaviors and behavioral science. I'm interested in how to motivate people and how to grow people. And this role actually allows me to do all of that and more. And so it's been really fulfilling. But at the same time, I still use my legal skills on a day-to-day basis. None of that training is wasted. I'm still interacting with lawyers very often that they have ideas that are quite technical, and I can help kind of work through the technical elements of it and help translate it for developers or other people in the team who might not have legal backgrounds. So long answer to quite a short question. I wanted to do something different. I was sort of, and actually it's worked out really well that I can keep my legal credentials and keep working in a law firm environment that I really enjoy, but also try and bring something completely different to the business.
Brilliant. Thanks, Nitish. And you've got to head off now, is that right?
I do indeed. I'm running a webinar, a workshop on how you run virtual workshops. So we do some things that are not necessarily sort of typically legal. And here's another one of them. So I'll leave you guys now. Best of luck to all the guys on the call. I know you guys are at different stages, so for applications or for jobs or whatever else, keep doing the research. It's what's going to help the most, and keep plugging away. I'm sure there's some pretty cool things out there for you to explore.
Yeah, thanks, Nitish. Thanks for coming.
Take care. Bye.
And guys, it's so true, isn't it? There's so many cool things for you to explore. Like, this is so interesting. If I was 16, 17 again, I'd be so interested in this type of thing. I mean, I'm probably not as half intelligent as these guys and I'd be able to go down this field, but it's just so interesting, the insights. And Shabazz agrees with me, saying, hi guys, I'm really enjoying your insights. Which tech developments do you think will be the most disruptive and significant within M&A? That's quite specific, but you can go with the M&A side or just the disruptive side. Has anyone got anything to comment on that potentially?
I think one of the biggest ones that we're seeing at the moment is the way in which due diligence is carried out. So traditionally, if, for example, you are acting for a client and a client wants to buy another company, before they buy that company, you have to carry out a few checks beforehand. And you may gather all the documents on that target company and you would manually review all of those documents, and you could be talking thousands and thousands of documents, and you would pull together a big team of lawyers, could be a mixture of paralegals, associates, and even partner supervising. And that could take hours and hours and hours to read through all those documents and pull together what's called a due diligence report to send to your client to say, here are some of the red flags, that things you need to consider before you decide to buy your target company. Now we're seeing the use of technologies, AI, data extraction technologies, helping to make that whole review process more efficient, and give a bit more transparency as to what lies behind a number of documents. So yeah, so that's definitely one big change I would say within the M&A practice. But I guess due diligence is across the board, across different practice areas. Krish, I don't know if you want to say how you think VOCA might change the way in which documents are drafted, for example, NDAs.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the major gain for us is with like really basic high volume documents. So I mean, M&A, mergers and acquisitions, for people that don't know, is when basically when a company buys another company. And when a company buys another company, it's not just like Asda buying Sainsbury's. It might be company A that buys company B, but company B might have a massive umbrella, and there's actually 100 companies inside company B. And not just 100 companies, there might be 100 brands. And each of those brands might have sub-brands that look completely different in different countries. Like if you go to France, it's called Lay's. If you go to your corner shop, it's called Walker's, ready salted crisps, right? And to manage that kind of trademark process, as well as all things like board resolutions, shareholder resolutions, which is basically like a log. Like when you track what's happened, you need to get all the board members of a company to basically agree on what's happened. They're like meeting minutes, basically. And when company A is buying company B, you might also have an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, which is basically like saying, please don't say anything about this deal until it's done. But if company B has like 100 mini companies and 100 sub companies within that, you need loads of documents to go out to loads of different people, and you need a way to manage that basically transcends an Excel spreadsheet. So that's where we come in, and those are the kind of documents that we'd automate, basically. So, but from what I spoke about earlier, like answering a quiz, and then based on that quiz, it builds your document. That's what you're going to be doing, but you're going to be mass generating documents. So you might want to send 100 NDAs out to 100 people at once. And instead of manually doing that via email, like how lawyers do today, you might want to use a system like ours. If you want to negotiate those documents as well, you could do that. And then based on certain answers, you might want to allocate certain answers to those people as well. So like what Saran mentioned with the due diligence. So one of the companies we work with is Sony. And when Sony's working with a new third-party company, or even like if you guys know about E3, which is basically like a big conference where they debut all the new games, like the new FIFA or the new God of War, they'll show it on like a huge screen. But before all of their influencers come in, they may want them to sign an NDA on like an iPad. And we've actually been part of doing that as well. But coming back to due diligence, like you may want to work with a company, but you might want to know certain questions like, do they contract in any like hairy jurisdictions? Are they working in like Russia or random other places? And then based on the answers that they give, you might want to send them other follow-up documents. So we can actually build stuff in our system that does that as well. So there's a range of different use cases, but the key things that you need to take away are documents that are created in high volume, so where lots of documents are, and documents have lots of standardization. So you're not getting a lawyer to do like really complex like drafting and writing. It's only when like key things need to change, like the amount of directors or how much the company is selling for. And if you keep that stuff in mind, you'll know exactly where automation adds efficiency.
It's so interesting. Thank you so much, Christian. It's great insight. Guys, because we're coming towards the hour, actually, and we don't want to run too far over, if you could please put in any takeaways that you've had in the chat box, any sort of sentences or one-liners of how you found the session, because what we've aimed to do here with this session is the first one in a series of 8 sessions with Alan and Overy, to give you a real insight into an area of their business. And I think it's been so interesting listening to what goes on at Fuse and how it benefits companies like Krishna's, which is brilliant. One more question I've got here, which I thought was a very, very good one. In what area of A&O do you think technology has had the largest impact? Katie, Saran, I'm not sure if you want to have a go at that one.
Yeah, I would say, so over the last 2 years, we've probably looked at 8 different types of technologies, and we've looked across our core practice areas, which are banking, corporate, and international capital markets. And I would say that banking has definitely seen a number of changes through technology. So the way that you would track and manage a closing process of a banking transaction, through to the standardization of agreements and the way that you draft. But I would definitely say corporate and banking are probably the 2 areas that are currently seeing the most changes from technology.
Brilliant, thank you. Go for it.
I was going to say one final thing to add to that, I suppose, is that our clients are now asking us to use this sort of tech because they're coming under pressure. So actually, we're also getting a huge increase for clients who are coming us to saying, can you help us with our legal tech and point us in the right direction of solutions that might benefit us?
Brilliant. And guys, by the way, just so you know, in terms of the questions we've been asking around law a little bit more specifically, I've sort of paused on those because we're going to be answering those questions in future sessions with A&O. You just got to have a little look and obviously turn up each Wednesday, and we all obviously do promote what's happening the next week. So for example, next week, as you'll see on the screen there, we're looking at one of our Look Beyond series. So looking beyond in Alan Overy and different types of jobs that are available there. Today we've looked into an amazing contribution towards Fuse and what that does for the company and how it helps businesses. And some of you are saying some nice things here. Really interesting to know you don't necessarily need a law degree to be a part of to be a part of the legal tech sector, which is absolutely right. I learned more about the different roles there are in law firms and technology, which I found interesting. That's great. Really useful. I look forward to taking part in A&O Smart Start experience. I know we've got a few students there. That's Haywa. So well done there. I hope you're looking forward to that. Jessica says, thank you so much. I'm interested in the career in law and was fascinated to find out about the impacts of technology within this field. If you are interested in law, this sort of stuff is great for you to be able to talk about if you're going to go to university and the interviews there, or to study law, or indeed if you're going to, looking for apprenticeships or graduate roles within the law field. I had heard about Fuse, Karishma, on LinkedIn, but this webinar provided me with more of an insight into it. Really enjoyed it, thanks. I guess this was quite a focused webinar, guys, but I've definitely learned a lot, and it hopefully just gives you some great breadth into your conversations and your understanding. There are some links which I'm going to send over to you guys in terms of the webinar follow-up and also the recording of this webinar. But do join us for next week when we email you the details about what's going on next week and why you should be joining. Just to hand back to our panelists, really, with, I guess, just top tips for young people based on what we've heard today. What would you say, including, Sue, if you like, maybe starting with Katie, top tips for young people at the moment, what would you say?
Keep up to date with what's going on in the world. Technology, there's an awful lot that's going on, and you can do that via LinkedIn or social media, but also do something you enjoy. You spend a lot of time studying at work, and really it's got to be something you enjoy. I suppose that's it from me, really.
And Krishna?
Top tips for the guys on the call?
Yeah, please.
I would say don't focus too much on getting in the weeds. I would say definitely learn more about how a business works. So how a business makes money, how a business loses money, how things like a bank work, how things like a smaller business is different from a larger business, why things like law firms are actually needed, and the kind of advice that they give and why businesses charge for that. I think for me, even at like my age, I'm still learning all the time how loads of different industries make money, and how they might lose money and why they might kind of close offices and open offices in different places. So I'll definitely do that.
Brilliant, Krishna, thank you so much. Saran, maybe over to you next.
So my top tips, I would say, be flexible in your approach to your career path. If you come across challenges or hurdles and obstacles, just adapt to it and look for different opportunities. They may not seem relevant at the time, but every opportunity has something that you can take from it. My second top tip would probably be look into growing your network and mentorship. So for me, I was really lucky to have a mentor in the last few years of my career that's helped guide me, just someone to bounce ideas against. I think, as Katie mentioned, just keep current. So for me, I think books that I would recommend, if you look for the author Richard Susskind, there's 2 books that he has written that I found really useful in terms of understanding what are the new types of roles that are going to be coming into the legal sector. So yeah, do keep current with information on the web.
Saran, would you mind typing those in the chat box?
Yeah, sure.
Is that okay? Just so students can get that, because that sounds brilliant. And Sue, any reflections on today and looking forward to next week potentially?
I really enjoyed today. Thank you ever so much to the panellists for taking part. Just to add to the top tips, I think, as you will have seen from everybody that's been on the call today, people sort of started off going down one route and then moved across. I think don't have fixed ideas, and I think, as everybody said, study something you enjoy, not what you think you should study and not what other people encourage you to study. So please, most of the trainees here have got a mix of degrees, So at least half of the trainees that come to A&O have not got a law degree, so they may have all sorts of degrees. So please don't think if you want to be a lawyer, you need a degree in law. So I think be flexible, try things. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter, you can move on to something else.
Definitely. Thanks so much, Sue. And thanks so much to our panelists. It was really, really good to understand a little bit more about the topic today. And we'll let you go a little bit later than 3 o'clock, but well done to everyone to turn up, and hopefully we'll see you next week. So thanks everybody. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Bye.
And students, those of you whose questions didn't get answered, we'll make sure we try and answer those in the future sessions, okay? But well done. That was a good session.